what is a portrait of a graduate? Portraits of graduates are what IB recognizes as traits that they want students to have when they graduate high school and go on to life. They are the global and ethical citizen, goal-directed and resilient individual, creative and critical thinker, communicator, and collaborator. So I gathered a lot of data, and I found that I had growth in many of these areas, but I had to figure out which one had the most growth and the most impact. I made a Google survey to access people inside of STEM, in my extracurriculars, and in my other classes. So some of my top two traits that I got were collaborator, which is something that I've been working on a lot, especially since freshman year, and then global and ethical citizen, which I'm using a lot more of now with my starting of a Rotary service organization here at Edison, and also putting myself in the stakeholder in this year's projects. The one I chose to focus on, however, was goal-directed and resilient individual. I chose this one for 3 reasons. 1, I demonstrated it inside and out of STEM. 2, it's not talked about as much. Most people like to focus on the communicator and the collaborator. It's easier and most obvious to show growth. And then also I had much unintended growth. Like I said earlier, I worked mostly this year to improve on collaboration, and this one just kind of grew in the background, and I really liked seeing how much progress I made in it. The data from my survey showed that when I asked people what my best portrait was, it was pretty evenly distributed. But when I asked which one had the most growth, goal-directed and resilient individual won out with 37.5%. So in specific instances, I asked my peers to write down quotes in the survey of times that I used this trait. And some of the things that were mentioned were keeping my spirits up through Edison drama productions, not letting people walk over me, having more confidence in my work, working hard before but now putting in an extra level, and always having my eye on the end goal. So throughout STEM, I think I've grown a lot. They would have us do these things called POG webs, where you would measure where you think you are at any point in the year. The first web on the left is the one for the beginning of freshman year. As you can see, it's pretty distorted, very small, and room for a lot of growth. End of freshman year is the second one. It's starting to fill out a lot more, pretty even, and then the end of this year, where I am now, I believe it's very symmetrical and still has enough room, though, for junior year growth. Yeah? Okay. There we go. So surveys aren't the only way to get data on my progress. I like to use design briefs, and specifically their outlines, to show how I've grown in my writing and things like that. So freshman year is the top left one. And as you can see, it's color-coded, so it's pretty organized, but it's not very concise and it's a little overwhelming to see. The one on the bottom right is a more recent one, and as you can see, it's a lot more concise with the speech. It has indents and is a lot more organized so we don't miss anything. The third way that I wanted to demonstrate growth was asking my peers who have been in my groups what they thought of my progress and what they thought of what I was then and now. Enzer was in my group towards the beginning of freshman year and the very last project of sophomore year, so I asked her a couple questions about what she thought. So Enzer was in my group with me freshman year and the end of sophomore year. What is one thing that I was good at freshman year in our project, and then what was one thing that you didn't like?
One thing that you were really good at is giving creative ideas, and one thing that you weren't as good at was listening to others' ideas.
So then sophomore year, when you saw you had me in your group again, what was, like, not a concern, but something that you were wondering was going to happen again?
One thing I was worried about was you taking over the project.
Did that happen?
No, it did not.
Oh, yay! So what do you think, what trait do you think I best portray?
I think being a creative thinker is one of your best traits.
Thank you. So then Enzo was in my group, my favorite group. And so I wanted to have him talk because I felt I performed the best in that group, and I wanted to see if that carried over to the other group members.
Hi there, my name is Enzo. I was in the chemical heating or the exo-endothermic reactions group with Meredith.
So what was your expectation of having me in the group?
My expectation was that Meredith would kind of take over and take charge from the get-go, and it would be Meredith's project, we would just be the assistants almost.
Did that happen?
Not at all.
Oh.
From what I had heard freshman year about Meredith, just from what I she's grown exponentially and being a better teammate, filling in her own role and understanding that the ideas of other people can be applied to the greater vision that Meredith has.
What was your favorite thing I did in the group?
My favorite thing that Meredith did in our group was deciding that instead of being reactive to the problem of heat stroke in our design, we could be proactive and just prevent it.
So what does all this show? I've given you all a lot of data and we have to come to a conclusion with it. The design briefs show an increase in conciseness and organization, getting to the point, part of goal-directed individual. Enzer's testimony showed that in the first group I took over and focused too much on the little things that weren't really as important. And then in the second group, I was able to delegate and I trusted people to hand over tasks. In Enzo's testimony, he said that he heard and observed last year a lot of dominance and, like I said earlier, handling the little small things. But in our other group, I let others come up with the ideas and less micromanagement and more big picture looking at it. So what does all of these Portraits of a Graduate mean for my life? Once I get out of STEM, I'm going on to full IB. The learning process of full IB is very similar to that of STEM, and so I think that will help me a lot. And then also the design briefs are very close to the internal assessment, or IAs, that we have to do for IB. So the skills that I learned in doing design briefs should help a lot with that. Then in college, the self-teaching practices, the independence, and the mantra of not always being the right answer, but having the right process. This can also apply into career and life with people management skills, dealing with failure, patience, and developing foresight. Thank you. Any questions?
Nice job, Meredith. Nice job. Thank you very much. So I wanted to first of all say I think you did a really nice job. I liked how your presentation flowed, and I wanted to just ask you how you see resilience playing into some of the things that you talked about.
So resilience isn't one of the things that I talked about very much in the presentation, but it was kind of a driving force throughout the entire thing. Part of the giving over tasks to other group members was something I really struggled with because of past experiences with when I handed them over, it kind of fell on their faces and things like that. So I just had to keep trying and keep handing over things and keep putting it in. And then also the resilience, like I mentioned, a pure quote of Edison drama productions, handling with people the drama of that and just trying to keep pushing and keep getting the overall goal done.
Okay, awesome. And what was it that happened? Was it something that you internal to you or external or some kind of combination that you think moved you from where you were as an individual to where you are now?
So that's one of the things that I really liked about the trait goal and directed resilient individual, because I didn't really notice that I was growing in it. And when it came to something like the collaborator one, it was something I was like, all right, something's wrong here. I have to grow. I have to move with this. But then with the goal-directed resilient individual, I was just filling out the web and I was doing the survey and seeing how many people chose this one and their reasoning for it. So I can't give you a direct thing of what motivated me because it was something that just happened in the background that I'm very grateful for happened now, but it was just interesting to see how it developed.